What's up, awesome YouTubers? Ryan1988 or Justin back here to do a video for you guys, and happy Halloween to you all. And this Halloween, I originally was going to do kind of a re-ranking of the Halloween franchise, but I decided not to do that. And this Halloween, I'm going to give you my top 10 favorite John Carpenter films. Now, I don't think I've ever done this video, and if I have, it's been a very, very long time. And so I thought this would be something refreshing or something a little bit different than, again, re-ranking the Halloween franchise, which I've done, several times throughout, my time on YouTube. So I want to talk about my favorite director, John Carpenter, and what I think are his 10 best films, and also give you 3 honorable mentions and talk about those. Now, my list could slightly change throughout the year, especially, the first maybe few movies. My top 5 is definitely solid, and those I don't think will ever change. But this is going to be my top 10. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what your guys' top 10 favorite John Carpenter movies are. Again, he is my favorite director, so for me, he has a huge impact on me as far as film goes. And I met him once. Saw him in concert, so for me, I just felt like this was a really good video to do. So, my honorable mentions, I'm going to do 3 of them. The first one is his last movie he did, which was almost 10 years ago, and that is The Ward. Such a great movie in my opinion. This one, it's got its mixed fans. You either love it you either love it, like it, or dislike it. I love this movie. It was, initially in my top 10. However, I haven't seen the movie in a long time, so I want to go back and rewatch it. However, I had to mention this one because it is a great film. Great atmosphere, great cast. I guess one of the negatives about this is that I wish Carpenter would have done the music for it. I think that would have made the movie even better. However, still, I'm a big fan of The Ward, always have been, and one I gotta go back and rewatch. It's been a while since I've seen it, but first time especially I saw it, I absolutely loved it. I'll talk about this one. This one is a pretty popular John Carpenter movie. Almost made my top 10. I thought about putting it in there, but there was one movie I like slightly more, and I'll talk about that when I get to it. But They Live is a film that has grown over time for me as a movie that I enjoy. The first time I saw it, I was not too crazy about the film. I understand why people love this movie. And, this movie over time, rewatching it again and again, I've enjoyed it a lot more. I think there's great things about it. Do I love the movie? Almost. Not completely. But I really enjoy the film. And, it is a great John Carpenter movie. And the last honorable mention I'm going to talk about is one that no one really talks about. It is a made-for-TV movie, but you would not think that watching the movie. And that is Someone's Watching Me. Absolutely love this. If you've not seen Someone's Watching Me, definitely check this movie out. Out of all Carpenter's movies, I think this one might be the most underrated one because, I don't hear a lot of people talk about Someone's Watching Me when they talk about John Carpenter. And I think this is a great, again, made-for-TV movie. Came out the same year as Halloween, either before or after Halloween. But yeah, love the cast, love the setting. I think it's a very eerie atmosphere for a TV movie. And definitely one to watch if you're a Carpenter fan, if you've not seen it. Going into my top 10, starting at number 10. And again, it was either They Live or They Live or Vampires, and I went with Vampires. And the reason why I went with Vampires is I've always enjoyed this movie. As a kid, I enjoyed it. I remember renting it from Blockbuster a lot, and rewatching the movie a few years back, I love this movie still. This is a great movie in my opinion. Some people don't like it, I understand, but I think it's a great movie. I love it, and I think it still works really well all these years later. So Vampires holds in at number 10 for me right now. It could change over time, but for me, Vampires is a great John Carpenter movie. And I feel like a lot of his 90s horror movies are underrated. This one's definitely underrated. People talk about it, but You know, when you talk about a lot of Carpenter's popular movies, this one and some of his other like 90s horror movies don't really either get a lot of love or they don't get a lot of talk. But yeah, love Vampires, great movie. Coming in at number 9, this one definitely has changed my opinion quite a bit because when I first saw it, I wasn't too crazy about it. However, I remember as a kid seeing this on HBO, and there were a few moments in the movie that really disturbed me and creeped me out as a kid. And rewatching it this past time, I think a couple months ago, they still are creepy. And that is In the Mouth of Madness. Great movie. If you've not seen this one yet, again, it's one of Carpenter's 90s horror movies, and a lot of his films during that time don't get a lot of talk. But In the Mouth of Madness is a great one. Sam Neill's in it, Julie Carmen. Just a good one. I love, again, he creates really good atmosphere. The music's great. Carpenter did the music for this one. And, you know, again, I mentioned as a kid seeing certain moments in this movie that really creeped me out. And those moments still creep me out. The one that I really remember a lot, and this is kind of a spoiler, is the moment where Julie Carmen's character, you know, an accident happens towards the end of the movie and she comes out of the car and her head is like, you know, turned around and she's like crawling, or I can't remember what it was, but I remember that scene as a kid scared me so much. And then there's also the scene where the kid is like riding his bicycle over and over again, and every time this kid is aging and aging and aging, and that scared me. So In the Mouth of Madness, you know, it's gotten better over time for me, kind of like They Live. That movie and this movie are two movies of Carpenter's films that I really wasn't too crazy about when I first saw them, but they've gone better, and this one definitely gets in my number 10, or top 10 favorite Carpenter movies. This one ranks a little bit lower on the list, and my number 8 and number 7 I was kind of going back and forth on. My number 7 I have more of a memory with, but this movie is still one I love, and that is Big Trouble in Little China. You know, my second favorite Kurt Russell movie with John Carpenter involved. The next one I'm going to talk about later on. I will say I don't have Escape from New York on this list. That is still a film where I'm kind of like 50-50 on. I think there's some great things about the movie, and there's some things that I don't really care for. Still a movie that I own in the collection. I do enjoy watching from time to time, but that one doesn't make my top 10. But Big Trouble in Little China, this one I remember a lot as a kid. Again, HBO was probably where I saw a lot of this movie, and I have memories with it. Kurt Russell's fantastic in it. Kim Cattrall's in it. You know, a performance from Kim Cattrall no one really talks about. You know, when they talk about Kim Cattrall, they don't really talk about Big Trouble in Little China. I think it is a great role with her in it. Love Big Trouble in Little China. One of my favorite Carpenter movies. Definitely makes my top 10. It has to make my top 10. So, yeah. If you've never seen this movie, which I think you have, I mean, you should have seen it. But if you haven't, go check out Big Trouble in Little China. Great movie. And a great Carpenter movie. My number 7 is, again, another 90s Carpenter movie that no one really talks about, and when they do, it's a film that, you know, either kind of gets people that like it or people that just dislike the film. I'm one that loves this movie, and that is Village of the Damned. Now, this is before the remake craze started, and, you know, throughout the decades before, like, the 2000s, you had remakes here throughout. You know, The Thing is a remake. There's a few other remakes out there. But, you know, it was before the remake craze, and I love Village of the Damned. I've still yet to see the original. I do want to see the movie eventually. But for me, this movie had such a huge impact on me as a kid watching it. I remember renting it quite a bit from the video store. I love the music in the movie. I think the music is great, and I love what Carpenter did with it. Eerie atmosphere, perfect cast. I think the kids are awesome in this movie, especially Lindsay, I believe her, probably pronounced her name wrong, but Lindsay Hahn, maybe? The little girl in the movie. She's awesome in it. You got Kirstie Alley, the late Christopher Reeves in this movie. Mark Hamill's in the movie. Just awesome. I love the movie, and it's still one I love when I watch it today. I think it is a awesome film. So, Village of the Damned. Yeah, one of my personal favorite Carpenter movies. Another personal favorite Carpenter movie that you either love or, not really dislike, but you don't love it. But I love the movie, and that is Kristine, a Carpenter film and based on a Stephen King book. One of my favorite Stephen King adaptations and one of my favorite Carpenter films. I love this movie. Almost was in my number 5, but my number 5 I'll talk about in a second. But Kristine, I think it's one of his underrated ones. You either have people that love it. There are people that do love the movie. But there's also people that kind of dislike this film or not really care for it. Everybody has their opinions, but I love it. I think it's eerie. I think it's scary at times. It could be just the car itself, maybe the way the car was lit, or the way the camera was positioned, or the music in the movie. I don't know. The car's creepy in it. The cast is great. But yeah, Kristine, one of my favorites. Going into my my top 5, and this one again kind of went back and forth between Kristine or this movie. I think this one's slightly better, and I think it is. When you talk about Carpenter's movies, this is another underrated one. Kind of overlooked. It came out before Halloween. It's actually the film that kind of got, Halloween greenlit. And for me, I love it, and that is Assault on Precinct 13. I saw the remake. I'm not a fan of the remake. That's actually a remake I do not like. I actually really dislike that movie. But the first movie, I love it. The first time I saw it was almost 2 years ago. After I saw John Carpenter in concert, they were playing the theme music, and I loved the theme music, and I thought, I have to see this film. So I bought it on DVD, watched it, loved it, still love it now. I've seen it a few times, and I think it's just perfect. It kind of showed what we were going to get with Halloween as far as his music. Because his music, when he creates the music, it is fantastic. When he composes the music and writes it, there's that John Carpenter touch there, and it works so well with his movies. The way the movie was lit, the way it looked, there's a lot of similarities to Halloween as far as that goes. A lot of, in the shadow moments, a lot of the dark night scenes. It just showed what we were going to get with Halloween. So if you've not seen Assault on Precinct 13, definitely go out and buy it or watch it. It is one of his best. I love this film. Awesome movie. An underrated Carpenter movie, another one, and I think this one, out of a lot of his films, especially from the 80s, this is a very underrated movie, and it is one that scares me still today, and that is Prince of Darkness. Lands in at number 4 for me. This just celebrated 32 years, I believe, maybe a few days ago, not a few years ago, but a few days ago. 32 years old, came out in 1987. I rewatched this with a buddy of mine a couple months ago, and there are still moments that creep me out like they did when I first saw it. And in fact, when I was a kid and seeing this on TV, there were moments that stuck in my head for like 2 or 3 days, and I could not get those scenes out of my head. I still think it's a scary movie. I think it is one of his best by far, and if you've not checked out Prince of Darkness, definitely do so. Or if you haven't seen it in a long time, go back and watch it. Great cast. Donald Pleasance is in this movie. A lot of other, Carpenter familiar faces. Alice Cooper's in the movie. The music is one of the best scores from Carpenter, and it just creates that eerie atmosphere even more in this movie. Absolutely love it. The ending of the movie scares me. There's something about it that just kind of gives me chills when I still watch it. just creepy. Creepy movie. One of Carpenter's best if you've not watched it. So check that one out. My number 3 and number 2, for a long time, my number 2 is number 3. But rewatching these films, my number 2 deserves to be at that spot. But number 3 is still a favorite of mine. And that is The Fog. John Carpenter's The Fog. Now, this one, surprisingly enough, there are people that love this movie and people that don't love this movie. You know, some people dislike the film, but I love The Fog, and I still love this movie. Saw this movie for the first time back in 2005 when the remake came out. Of course, I saw that in theaters, but I remember them playing this on TV over and over. And then when they re-released the DVD and I was able to get it, I bought it. And, you know, still have that DVD. It's signed by Adrienne Barbeau. But, you know, this movie had a huge impact on me growing up, getting into horror movies. And then, you know, still loving it today. I still watch this movie and I still get scared. There are moments that really creep me out. Not just Carpenter's score, but the way he lit the fog effect, or the, you know, actually the practical fog that he used in the movie, was creepy. And I think it has to do with the music, because if you didn't have the right music, I don't think it would work as well. But even those moments where the fog is creeping up on these people and coming into the town is scary. The cast is perfect. This is one of my favorite casts in a movie. You got Tom Atkins, Adrienne Barbeau, Janet Leigh, Jamie Lee Curtis, you know, Hal Holbrook. I had to look at his name. Nancy Loomis, or Nancy Kyes, is in this movie. Just a fantastic cast. One of Carpenter's best still today, and one that never gets old for me. So The Fog lands in at number 3. Number 2 is, again, one that was, for the longest time, I would say, in my, you know, my number 3 or number 4. But it deserves to be at number 2 now, and that is John Carpenter's The Thing. I've yet to see the original movie, so I can't really compare them. I've seen the prequel, which I think is really good. I think it works well with back-to-back with this movie. It's a nice connection. But this is still the best Thing movie, and one of Carpenter's best films. Very close to my number 1, which you guys all know what I'm going to talk about in a minute. But I love The Thing. It's so crazy that when this movie came out, not a lot of people liked it, and critics really slammed Carpenter for it, and it wasn't a hit at the, you know, box office. But I love The Thing. I think that, again, you have a perfect cast in this movie, led by Kurt Russell. One of his best performances, if not my favorite performance from Kurt Russell. Just awesome. I think the fact that this movie takes place in winter and it's a snowy setting, I think that is creepy. Again, you have an amazing score by Carpenter that works really well with the film. And the practical effects are still some of the best practical effects I've seen in a horror movie, and are scary. So The Thing, I love rewatching this movie every winter. I might watch it before October ends, though, because this is one of my favorite of his. But The Thing, perfect movie in my opinion. I love it. And my number 1, of course, is Halloween. Halloween will always be my favorite horror movie, my favorite Carpenter film, and in my opinion, my favorite movie of all time. This, along with a few films throughout, you know, my childhood, had a huge impact on me. I remember seeing this movie for the first time on TV when they played Halloween, and they played Halloween 2 on USA. And Halloween just had, there was an effect on me. It creeped me out, but I was so intrigued by it. I could not stop watching it as a kid. And, you know, throughout the years, I would put this movie on, or I would see it on TV, and it still had that same effect on me that it did when I saw it for the first time. And so it's crazy to now hold like a 4K copy of this movie, because I own a VHS, I own a Laserdisc, I own the DVDs, I own the Blu-rays. Halloween is still the best movie of all time, in my opinion. I love this movie. Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis is amazing. Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis, fantastic. Nick Castle as The Shape. Deborah Hill, John Carpenter, all these names. PJ Souls, Nancy Loomis, Charles Cyphers. They all created something that, is special for me, and that is Halloween. This will always be a film that I go to every year. Of course, I watch it in October, and every once in a while I'll put it on throughout the year, kind of just randomly, and it never gets old for me. So Halloween, #1 favorite Carpenter movie, just fantastic. So anyway, guys, that is my video. I hope you all have a wonderful Halloween, and again, happy Halloween to you all. I wanted to do something different, and I've never done a top 10 Carpenter list. I remember last year I did Stephen King, and I'll probably do more top 10 favorite lists, Wes Craven being my second favorite director. Very close to being #1, but my second favorite director, and I'll probably do a top 10 for that, and some other directors or other, top 10s in the future. I like doing these. So anyway, guys, here you go. Carpenter films, absolutely love them. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And once again, happy Halloween to you all. So, in with a positive, out with a negative. Have a great day, and go eat some Skittles. All right, guys. Bye.